All right, so in the last lecture, we applied the RVT. We can see that the RVT is working. I disabled the distance blend. The distance blend together with the RVT is working, but it's still a little buggy. It causes artifacts and all that stuff. So this is just the reason why I disabled the RVT. So please don't mind the background. This is a lot of parallax occlusion here because I'm just focusing on this part. So I have some decent parallax occlusion on this small tiling. But as you can see for the background, it's not really that useful. But I just want to show you that we have this function now, the height blend. So as I told you, I got the broken stump. Feel free to go on Fab and search for the Quixel account. So Quixel has its own, its own account with all the textures and scans and all that stuff. So I just downloaded a broken stump manually. You extract everything you need. So I got the... I just imported the mesh. The textures I need is, of course, the ambient occlusion, the albedo, normal, and the roughness, okay? So the 4 textures we need. And then I just create a simple material, okay? The only thing you need when you import something, like when you import a trunk or a cliff or stones, and you want to blend it with this landscape, I can show you how this is going to work out. You just set up a basic material. So when you create a material, basic material, you only have this, right? And then you just import your materials and you hook up the albedo to the base color and you hook up the roughness to roughness and you hook up the normal to normal and you hook up the ambient occlusion to ambient occlusion. So what I created for you, and I will show you in detail how to use that. If you really don't have any interest on how to update this or how to create this, then just skip it. But I strongly advise you, this is the reason why you pay for this course, because you want to learn how to create those things. But if you like on a tight time schedule, or like you're like, I'm learning too much, I cannot really focus on that right now, you can also just get this material function. So it's available, the whole project is available for download, and you can just get this material function and use it right away with all the other material functions. I will just tell you that when you create a material for your asset you place inside your world, for example, this tree stump, or maybe like a stone, a cliff, something, I don't know, you just set up your basic material. The only thing you have to put in between is this so-called material function RVT mesh material. Okay? I will show you later. First, we need to apply our height information, but I will show you how to do that. And this is pretty awesome because every time you have different assets, you have different stones, you have different things you place in your landscape, right? A lot of different stuff. You only need to put this in between, and it's already applied. You can already blend your landscape material on top of your mesh material. So, but before I tell you how this is going to work, let me just show you. If I go to this material, of course I create a material instance. So once you create this material, right? So you only have this for now. You only have your textures, and you only have this connected. You don't have this, okay? This is perfectly fine. This is perfectly fine. Just connect your textures. Nothing else. Okay, and then put your mesh onto your landscape, okay? Perfectly fine for now. Just create another, but just out of this, create a material instance. Pretty important. Yeah. Am I recording? Yes, I am. Okay. So you apply, of course, the material instance. You don't have that as of right now. You don't have this, right? Perfectly fine. All that stuff. So basically, you don't have anything in your material instance. Basically, you don't have anything. But I will just show you the difference, what the height blending will do for all the assets you place inside your landscape. So when you have stones, cliffs, like nice stuff, you want to just populate your landscape. See how this is going to look without. So this is this would be your asset you place on your landscape without height blending. And this would be the difference with the blending. So you can see this is like a huge impact. So you can control how much you want to use, so maybe even more. And you can also control if it's really sharp. So of course when you go minus, it will just flip. But you can see like this is really sharp. But you can also get this nice fall off. Maybe you like something like just like a small area, but then maybe a nice long fall off, or maybe just a shorter fall off, but then maybe a little more of the landscape blending in. Maybe I like something in between. So maybe 1.05 is good, and maybe a fall off of like 200 is good. So, and then you can see the difference. So this is disabled, and this is the height blending. Okay, and you can see if you just put this here. You can already see. You can also place it wherever you want. And now you can see it's getting sharp because of the parallax occlusion. But yeah, this is basically something I will show you now, how to apply that. Okay, so what you need to do, you have a so-called, inside your outliner here on the right-hand side, you have something called Runtime Visual Texture Volume. This can only be, in the last lecture, you only have this. So I just renamed this to RVT Material, because we have to distinguish now, we need another RVT called Height, okay? So Runtime Visual Texture Volume, just right-click and rename this, okay? Edit and rename, or press F2. Call this RVT Material. And this is what you have already. And the landscape is set bounds, everything is perfect. Now you copy this material, not the material, you copy this Runtime Visual Texture Volume. Now you have another one. You just rename this second one to RVT Height. And the virtual texture into this copy here, it must be blank. I believe 99% sure this is blank, the copy. Just put the height into this copy, because now you need 2 in your outliner. The bounds is already set to landscape. You don't need to set the bounds again to this landscape. If not, just in case, just click on this actor, click on your landscape and set bounds, and your landscape is also applied for the height. But I didn't need to do it, so obviously you don't need to do it as well. Okay? So this is perfectly fine. Now you have this, okay? The next step you need to do is you go into your landscape RVT folder, and next to your RVT material, you create another material, which is called, visual texture. You create another runtime visual texture, and you call this RVT height. Now open the RVT height, set the size of the visual texture and tiles to 10, so this would be then 1024 instead of 256. So you need more resolution. And also switch the texture content to world height. This, for the height, makes sense, world height. Also, while we are at this process, open up the RVT material. This is already all applied. But also make sure that you just double that 2 times. So this is 256 by default. And set to 8. So if you set this to 10, it would be 256, then 512, and then 1024. So we just double this 2 times. So 8 to 10. Okay, so this is 1024, the RVT material. So both the height and the RVT material, you set this tile size, resolution stuff from 256 to 1024. One last thing you need to do. Next to your RVT material onto your landscape, when you click on the landscape, you have something when you type in draw. You have the RVT material, right? You need to add another element and apply the height as well. So you have both in your draw box, okay? So those are like the 3 steps you have to prepare now in order to have your height implemented. Now you need the logic for your height, okay? So what you need to do is, before I show you the 2 functions, let's go into the M landscape. Because I added something. You need to add this too. The so-called transform vector. You have a get material attribute here, right? So you have a lot of outputs. Base color, specular roughness, and normal. For the normal, you put something in between, and this is called a transform vector. Right-click, transform vector. This one, just the transform. This is the green stuff here. The transform vector is already a default from tangent space to world space. This is perfectly fine, so you don't need to change it. It states here, tangent space to world space. This is pretty important, so you have to hook this between normal output and normal input of your visual texture object. This is all you need to do here, so we just convert the tangent to world space for now. Later we will change it from world space to tangent space. We need to do it because we need to blend our material from our mesh together with our height information. This is a problem with the normal information because our normal information is in tangent space. So when we fuse this together, or when we blend the material together, we need to have it in world space first, and then we convert it back to world space to tangent space again. So this is all you have to do for your material landscape, okay? So now you have that. I don't need to save. Now you have this, okay? the next thing you need to do, you go into your RVT folder and you create a material instance. Sorry, I'm always confused. You add here a material function, another material function. And you call this material function mf rvt height blend. Here. You open this one up. You only have this, right? Makes sense. Now I explain to you in detail how to build this. If you're just like too confused and too lazy, just get my material function. You can just implement it right away. But it's pretty easy to set up. Just invest 5 minutes and you are ready. So you have the RVT height. So how can you get this node? Right click, runtime. This is how you start. Runtime virtual texture sample parameter. So you need to start with the runtime virtual texture sample parameter. And you call this one RVT height. Okay? When you have that, you need to choose a virtual texture here. And the virtual texture is, of course, the height you've just created before, the RVT height. And also make sure that the virtual texture content is world height. This is all you have to do here. Next to this, get a subtract node. So just right click and subtract, okay? Pretty simple stuff. Just get a subtract node. From the RVT height, you connect the world height into the B of the subtract. The A needs to have the world position. Just search for world, not absolute, but just search for world, if I can type. Just search for world position. This is the absolute world position. But you only need to get the height information, which is the Z value or Z value, the blue channel. And this is why we need to isolate the blue channel, so get a component mask in between. So this means, you know this already, get a component mask. And you only select the blue channel and you disable the red and green channel. Disable red and green and enable the B channel. And this is the stuff you subtract into the A channel. So this is basically your base logic, and you subtract the RVT height from the absolute world position. But only the height. This is why we mask only the B, the blue channel. Now we have this, okay? After all that stuff, we need to add something. So just press A and click, so you get an add node, and connect this into the A. Pretty simple stuff. Now, the object bounds is pretty simple to get. Just get object bounds, search for object bounds, this one, and also copy this mask you already have. Because we also want to mask only the height of our object. So when we apply this material function to our tree trunk or stump or cliff or stone, we are using the object bounds of this mesh, which has this material applied. So once this material is applied to a specific mesh, he's getting the object bounds of this material, of this mesh, sorry, because every mesh is scaled differently, right? So now we have those things, the object bounds, and it's isolated only on the blue channel, so only on our height information, vertical information. And now you connect this B into the add B channel. But at the same time, you also drag from here once more into a multiply node. So this one needs to go also into a multiply node, the A channel of the multiply, okay? Then you have an empty B channel of this multiply. Just right click, and then there's something called promoter parameter here. Click on the B and right click promoter parameter. You're going to have this green node. This green node, you have to rename RVT blend height, because with this value, by default, put this to 100. With this value, you are going to have, or you can decide how much you want to blend. Like, yeah, basically the height of the landscape material you want to blend into your mesh. So now you have this as well next to this logic, right? You have this logic, and now we have this logic. The reason why we have the object bounds multiplied with our blend height is because we need this stuff we have already added. So we added our object bounds, right? We need to subtract this once more with this value here. So just out of this multiply, you connect this one into the B channel of the subtract. Okay, just after add, get another subtract node and get this multiply and hook this into the B channel, and the A channel would be this one. Okay, so now you're almost done. After the subtract, you get a divide node. Just press D and click, and you get a divide node. So the first channel of the divide node, the A channel, would be your subtract. So all this logic is into A. But the B channel, just right-click and convert also to a parameter. Right-click and convert to parameter. And this one is the divide. So this time, this is the RVT fall off. And put this to 100 by default. Okay? Let me check one thing. Sorry for that. The RVT blend height, put this to 1.05. Okay, sorry for that. This is stupid. The blend height is 1.05 and the runtime virtual texture fall off is default value. Set this here to 100. This is pretty important. I just did a wrong fall off height. Sorry for that. So now we have this, right? So now you came to a point until you have this. All this logic we have now, okay? We need to saturate it. The saturate, you can also use a clamp, but the saturate is basically the same stuff. You can also, like I said, you also can just hook it up to a clamp, but in my case, I just used a saturate. This just ensures us that we clamp this value between 0 and 1, okay? So nothing's getting out of hand when we change stuff. After the saturate, get a 1 minus. Just type in, drag out, and type in minus. Just a minus. And you get a 1 minus. Not the subtract, 1 minus. 1 minus is just inverting our values. Okay, I explained to you already in the previous lectures what this is in detail. It's just inverting our values so it makes sense. Otherwise, when we just increase the fall off, our fall off gets sharp. It gets sharp. And when we increase our blend height decreases. So this doesn't make sense. So we want to have this the opposite way. This is why we just invert our value. Nothing else. After this, you get another multiply. You put all the logic into the A channel of your multiply. And for the B, you have to do one more thing, which is pretty simple. This is just to avoid texture stretching. This is something similar like triplanar projection. This means the vertical stuff, when you have something really like something quite vertical. Like, I mean, if you have like a stone and the stone is really like wide and not really like going up like so aggressively, this would be fine. You maybe have like some small stretching, but if you have something is just going up vertically, you're going to have a lot of texture stretching. And we want to basically disable that. This is why we get the vertex normal, WS. The vertex normal is just the direction of the mesh. So, and what we do is we just isolate with a component mask, we just isolate the blue channel, so the height. We just isolate the height. So vertex normal, just right click and type in vertex normal, and then you get the vertex normal WS. And you just isolate it with another component mask. Or you can just copy this mask. It's the same stuff. It's the same channel. And you multiply this. So this goes into the A channel of a multiply node. And again, here, right-click and promote to parameter. And this parameter is the side contrast. You can set this one to like 5 or 10. Let's use like a default value of 5. And apply and save. So it also depends on all like the scale and the scale of your landscape and all that stuff. All those values really depend on your scene. You need to really adjust. The same goes for like the shadow, the light map, when you have a parallax occlusion. I told you like the blueprint, the light vector and all that stuff. It all depends heavily on your scene. And also the near and far distance tiling and all that stuff. Everything you have to readjust. And you need to take your time doing this, okay? So now you have this, okay? And the whole stuff, you also want to saturate this. So you also want to clamp this, okay? And this goes into the multiply B. So this is just for us to make sure that our vertex normal, which is like the vertical alignment of our textures, so from bottom to top, is not getting stretched. And we just use a contrast. So the multiply, we just increase it. So this means that this stuff is just getting like extracted out when we have a higher value of this. And then after all that stuff, we have this thing, we have this whole logic here into a multiply, and this vertex normal WS logic, we have this into a multiply B channel. And then once again, you put this into a 1 minus. Okay? You need to put this again into a 1 minus because we have this multiplied. This is the reason why we put this into a 1 minus. And then you can finally put this into the output. And then when you did everything like I told you, you have now your material function RVT height blend. And now you can use that. Let me just close this. Now we can use this MF RVT height blend. This means when I go to, let me just quickly check something. Okay, this is fine. Now let me go to this material here. So now, this is something you don't have, right? This is something you don't have. So if I open this one up, here, this is our height blend we just created. Okay, so now the next step, I will just show you how to create another material function. And then this is where this is like hidden. The stuff we just created is hidden inside another material function. Okay, so just for you to understand how we use it. Okay, so for now, you just have that. Okay, this is perfectly fine. So we go back to our RVT folder. So we have the height blend and it's prepared. Now you create another material function called mf underscore RVT underscore mesh material. You open this one up. And now this is pretty basic stuff. It looks a little like, it looks maybe a little bit intimidating, but it's pretty simple to set up. I wanted to make sure that you have a material function for this because you can just get this material function and you just, I told you in the beginning, you just put this function, so this whole function, you put this into a material of any material, any stone, cliff, trunk, tree, everything you want, like every mesh you just have, and you want to blend it on top of your landscape. You just use the material. Now I'm confused. Meshes. So I told you already, you have a material for your trunk or a stone, and this is your basic material, right? You just hook up your textures, nothing else. And you only need to, the second material function we just created, the RVT mesh material, right? This is the material function you just created, and now this is empty for you. So you don't have any inputs, you don't have those outputs. I will just show you how to do that. But the good thing is, this RVT mesh material, you can just drag it inside any material you want for your stone, cliff, and all that stuff, and you can just blend it right away. You don't need to do anything. You just need to drag it inside. And this is it. So this is pretty cool. So now, let's open this one up. For you, this material function, RVT mesh material, you just created that and it's empty. You only have an output. And this output is just called output, I believe. So, yeah, you can already rename this to albedo. You don't need to do it now. It doesn't make any sense. But you only have this output. Okay? So, let's start. How did I do that material function for you to just use it universally right out of the box for every mesh you want to blend into your landscape? You get another runtime virtual texture sample parameter. Runtime virtual texture sample parameter. Okay? Pretty important. So it's a parameter because you can, when you have a material instance later, you can just drag and drop your RVT material inside there. So maybe if you have a different landscape and you create you have a new landscape, you have a new project, of course you need to set up your runtime virtual texture volume, right? You need to create a runtime virtual texture volume, you need to apply your landscape to it, you pick actor, you pick your landscape, you set bounds, boom, your landscape is perfectly applied to your landscape, and you created the volume, and it's all like, and you click on your landscape, and you search for draw, and you make a channel, and you put the RVT material into this landscape. And you're set up. It's so simple. It's really, really, really simple. So this is, when you have a material instance, you can just drag and drop this into your function. Or in this case, material instance, you can just drag and drop it into here. And this is it. So this is the reason why you call this RVT material. Okay? So now, you need to change this RVT material you've just renamed. You need to set this to base color, normal, roughness, specular, because we just don't want to have base color. We want to also have the normal information when we blend. We want to have also the roughness and the specular. right? Otherwise, it's going to look really, really weird, and it's going to look horrible. It's going to look like plastic. So this is the reason why we want to have all like the nice surface and all that organic surface effect. So this is why you also need the roughness and the specular and the normal. After this, you type in or you search for make material attributes. Make material attributes. And you put this one here. And you put the base color into base color, roughness into normal, roughness into normal, normal into, oh my god, roughness into roughness, normal, normal, and specular to specular. Boom. So this is now almost like the first half, and you're already halfway through, almost. When you have this, just on the bottom, create another, or just copy this. Just copy this node and put this underneath. You need to create 3 function inputs. Function, input, okay? You call the first one albedo. By the way, it's a vector 3. Each one of those are vector 3s. The first one is albedo, and you put this into base color. The second one is roughness, you put this into roughness. And the third one is normal, you put this into normal. And you get another one, like the fourth one is also vector 3. You call this ambient occlusion. You just might want to use ambient occlusion, right? And you hook this up also to ambient occlusion. The only difference here is you get a static switch parameter. Pretty important that this is a parameter, because you want to make inside your instance, you want to set this to true or false. So in most cases, you have ambient occlusion. So yeah, I don't know. Sometimes you don't have any ambient occlusion, you don't want to. Then, of course, you can just disable this. If this is disabled, let me just explain it to you. This one you put into true, and you call this static switch parameter, use ambient occlusion, question mark. And you connect this into ambient occlusion. If this is false, so if we disable this later in our material instance, so material use ambient occlusion, no, then you just get a constant. Just get a constant, this one. And set this to 0. This just means a value of 0 is false, means there is no information. It's just disabled. So when we set this to false, there is no value. It's just completely dismissed, okay? So this is pretty important. Now you have all that stuff, right? Now you can open up your content drawer here, and you get the material function you just created before, the RVT height blend. Just drag and drop this in here, okay? You can just drag and drop it. Now the RVT height blend, it's ready for you, or you just created that. You can now use this as well. So you have an output here, our RVT material. You have your texture, basically your branch texture, your wood material, for the trunk, for the stone, for the cliff, anything organic you put into your world. This is basically this stuff, okay? This is why we have function inputs. So later you can just drag and drop albedo, drag and drop your roughness, drag and drop your normal, drag and drop your ambient occlusion. This is the reason why I prepared this for you. So you can just switch this individually for each material. So now you have 2 outputs, and the third output you have is your height blend, your material function here. In order to connect all 3 outputs, you need a blend material attributes. This means just type in blend material attributes. Get these blend material attributes. The RVT material for all the textures you put into A. For the material you have on your trunk or a stone or a cliff, this would be this stuff here. This is the B input of your blend material. So now you're blending the landscape material with your trunk or your stone. And in order to change the value and how much you want to blend, this is the alpha. This is the height blend. You just put this into the alpha. And this is inside there. This is all the logic we have to control. So you remember we isolated the blue channel. This is the vertical. We isolated this. And this is all the logic we can now apply. And this is how we can determine how much you want to use of the landscape material. So how much you want to use the A input together with this stuff. All right? I hope this makes sense. Now you're almost through. After the blend material attributes, we need to switch. This is why we have those 3 nodes. So those 3 nodes is just to switch our normal information. So only the normal information from this and this normal information. We need to get material attributes. Okay? You need to get material attributes, and you hook this one up. And you click here, and you can create new channels. Make sure when you create more channels, you need base color, then roughness, then normal, then ambient occlusion. You can also swap here the channels. Okay? Make sure it is base color, roughness, normal, ambient occlusion. After that, get a set material attributes, okay? Get this one. Also create all your materials, just plus, and do base color, roughness, normal, ambient occlusion, okay? This is it. So now, the only thing you need to do, you need to get a transform vector. Again, I told you in the beginning, we need to put this back to tangent space, only the normal. So you get vector operators here, transform. This is the green stuff. And you hook this from normal into the transform vector, and from the transform vector you hook this one, into set material attributes. Everything else is set material attributes is connected, the base color is connected to the base color, the roughness is connected to the roughness, and the AO is connected to the AO. The only difference here is that we have this transform vector, pretty important, from world space to tangent space. So you need to swap it. Not tangent to world, but world to tangent space. Because now we need to put this back into tangent space. After the set material attributes, so we have all the information gathered and correctly translated, you can now finally break material attributes. Just get a break material attributes. This one would be that node, this huge node here. And this gives us the possibility to finally put the base color into our output. Now you can rename your output into albedo, and then you can copy this output 3 times. Copy the second one, rename the second one to roughness, the third one to normal, the fourth one to ambient occlusion, and you hook it up to its perspective channels. Okay? So it looks like this. Now your material function for all your meshes is ready. So the only thing you need to do, let me just close that, and yeah, whatever, let me just, okay. So the only thing you need to change for your materials, so when you have a trunk, a tree, or a stone, a cliff, I told you already several times here, you can now just get this RVT mesh material, you can just drag it inside your trunk material, or your mesh material. And then you prepared this. Now you have an input for albedo, roughness, normal, ambient occlusion, and you also have the information albedo, roughness, normal, ambient occlusion for output. So this is already translated perfectly. To just connect it, it gets all the logic inside here. So it gets all the logic as well as this function. So there's this height blend material function is hidden inside this. So inside this function, we have this material function hidden inside as well. And this is just the blend. So the height blend. Okay? Now we have all those functions. Good. And once you did that, and you put your mesh onto your landscape, and you have this one hooked up. Now, I told you before, you can create, no, I don't want to save. Now you can create, when you have your mesh, you just go to your content, wherever you have it, your mesh, your tree, cliff, or whatever you have. Just go into your material, and I told you to create a material instance, so you have this already. And now, finally, when you open this one up, now you have the RVT height blend, now you have the fall off. So by default, this is 1.05. I told you. The fall off is, I believe, also 100. I believe it's 100. You can crank this one up to 200. Sometimes it looks a little better, it depends. And the side contrast is also 5 by default. You can make it a little stronger, so that you can make the landscape material a little stronger if you just crank it up to like 10 or something. But a value of like between 5 and 10 is perfect. It depends on your scene. Okay, and what you have also is the RVT material and the RVT height. This is what I told you when you have this material function, and you want to use this in a new project. So what you need, if you have a new project or you have an existing project with a landscape and you really want to use the height blending, first what you need to do, change your landscape, your own project into RVT. So your landscape needs to be RVT. So this means that you have, like I told you, the RVT material and the RVT height, right? And once you created those bounds, you remember, you need to click here on the right-hand side, set bounds. First you choose your landscape and all that stuff. And then after that, you click on the landscape, and then you have something called draw. And you create 2 channels, so you have the material and the height, right? So this is something you have to enable in your own project. So also, of course, in Edit, before you all do that, you need to enable virtual texture. Makes sense. And then you can just get this material function, those two material functions. If you just want to use this, those two material functions you need. This is what you create on your own project, right? This is project dependent. So this is what you need to create in your project first. The RVT height information and the RVT material information. But this is pretty easy to set up. But then you can just get this one and you can get this one. Okay? And the good thing is that you can just drag and drop the material here and the height, those two, and the height, you can just drop it here. When you have a different project, let me just get the height blend material function. When you have your own project and you just want to use those two things, make sure that the RVT height is set to your project RVT height you just created inside your project. And also for the mesh material function, you have this one, which is the base color normal roughness specular RVT material. So this colored one. All right. And also make sure for the RVT height, this is the content world height, right? The other one is world height. And then you're already good to go. So then you can just right out of the box, just drag this material function inside your mesh material, inside your material you want to have this blend on it. And the height blend is already inside here. I told you already. So you don't need to place it anywhere. The logic is already inside. So this is really nice, really good. And now I show you, because this material is applied, broken stump material. It is applied. And then you will have something like this. This is now working. So without, it's going to look horrible. It's completely cut out. Doesn't make any sense at all. So before that, you always had to hide that with a lot of foliage and stones and stuff. Pretty weird. But now you can just, boom, like do this. 1.05 is always a good value. 150, 200. So 200 is a good value. And side contrast, you can see is pretty weak, the blend. But here, like a value of 2, 3, 4, 5 is good. So now it's strong enough. And yeah, this is basically how you can blend your material. And now you can also just put this one here maybe, or here. And you can see we are blending it. Perfect. And you really can see the difference. Like how weird this is looking here. Doesn't make any sense. But now, if I just put this to 1.05, boom. It's perfectly melted into our landscape. So, of course, there are much better examples. And also much better, it depends on what kind of meshes you use and also what kind of textures in combination. Of course, you can make this look much better. This is just a quick demonstration. Of course, the textures and all that stuff nothing is really like completely, how should I say, I didn't invest much time, to be honest. I was just placing some random item here and just quickly applied the height information. That's it. So, but you can see right out of the box, this is perfectly fine. You can see like how natural that is. Yeah. And now you can see how this is basically going to look. So yeah. And you can also see like down here, the scale is much bigger. So this means that we have a different value here for this area. But once we go, maybe we want to go here. So this mesh now is much smaller. This also means that we might have to readjust depending on the scale you see here. Then this is something you really have to like change that stuff. But of course, this is why we have a material instance, right? So now you can see, depending on where you want to have it. Okay, perfect. So this is it for the RVT height. And yeah, so now you have everything. Sweet.